All right, folks, I am super excited today to have the some recipients of the 2025 National Institutes on Aging Startup Challenge and Accelerator. These are pioneers in technology and aging, and I am thrilled to be able to talk to all of these entrepreneurs at once. But first off, let's learn a little bit about the Startup Challenge and Accelerator. Kareem, would you like to give us a brief overview?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. So, the four of us are part of the National Institute on Aging Startup Challenge for 2025. 300 companies and startups applied from across the country, and 21 were selected for different innovations in aging. There's devices, digital health, things to help encourage more activity, and there's just a really good group of people bringing new energy to the field of aging.
Wow. Well, it sounds like this is going to be the first of many discussions I have because I'd love to talk to all 21 of you, but I'm glad to kick this off with your four organizations. Kareem, since you've got the mic, how about giving me a little bit of overview about you and the organization that you represent?
Absolutely. So my name is Kareem Elfoulie. I am CEO and co-founder of Senior Shield Technologies. I have a background in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech. I've been a caregiver for family with chronic illness for more than a decade. We make devices that help dignify incontinence care. Our main product is a pad, goes outside of a person's brief unless their caregiver know when to change. The thinking is to promote quicker changes, restore dignity, and reduce the risk of infection.
Holy cow, I love it. All right. Well, I know we're going to come back and dive into things a little bit deeper, but Marie, how about you go next? Give us a little bit of your background and the organization that you've created.
Yeah, well, first, it's a pleasure to be here and honored to be among these founders. Got to give all of them a hug a couple weeks ago when we were at a conference together. But my name is Marie Brodsky. I'm the CEO and co-founder of WISE Connect. Our work is really all about helping people stay active and stay connected and supported in their own community, in their own home. And I am happy to pass it off and dig more into it later.
Hey, great, great. All right. So thanks, Marie. And now, Neil, you're next on my screen. Would love to learn a little bit more about you and your organization as well.
Sure. Hey, Steve. And yeah, great to see everyone from the NIA Startup Challenge. I'm Neal Shah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CareYaya Health Technologies. I am actually a little bit older and mid-career, and it's awesome to see younger people innovating in this field too. I actually previously had a career as a hedge fund manager, and throughout my mid and late 30s, I went through two majorly stressful caregiving experiences for family members, and decided to shift my life's work into this field because I felt that caregiving is one of the biggest societal challenges of our time. So that led us down our path. The quick overview on CareYaya is that we are a tech-enabled marketplace connecting now over 50,000 healthcare students to be companion caregivers for older adults with dementia. We've started it from nothing, and now it's scaled to over 30 different universities around the country, doing a rapid workforce expansion at a time of major caregiver shortages in our society, connecting people with the most affordable care in most markets, over 30 to 40% lower cost than traditional care agency options. And then we're doing a lot of ancillary innovations to improve the experience of caregiving for a loved one through serious illness, which I'm happy to talk about later. But yeah, really excited to be here with this group of amazing innovators, and I just am very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, no, and opportunities for students and the intergenerational connection in the caregiving model. I love it. All right. Last but not least, Stefano, let's get to know you and the organization that you are a part of.
Hi, Steve. Well, I'm happy to be back here again, and also great to see my fellow cohort members from this challenge. One thing I'm really excited about being part of this group is that you get to actually like talk with people who not only have lived experiences in caregiving and older adults, but really just people who are like passionate about creating innovative solutions for this aging population, which is like really exciting. And on top of that, the fact that we're supported by the NIA, I think that's in itself like a crazy adventure. I mean, we just came back from a conference. It was at Health 2025, and so it was a totally different kind of like point of view of being part of this cohort, and it was really great. My name is Stefano Selorio. I'm the founder and CEO of Carevocacy. When I was here like a few episodes ago, Steve, I was talking about the work that we're doing around digital literacy and specifically digital health literacy. So we've been around for about 5 years. Really helping older adults bridge that digital divide. When we first started, we were doing it just me doing private tech tutoring and classes and stuff like that. And we grew over to serving about 23,000 older adults through a relationship we had with Humana and some Medicare plans. But now we're working on Apple AI, which is an AI SMS text-based text tutor to help easier and kind of scale and measure and make digital literacy a little bit more accessible for folks. So I'm happy to be here. And again, as I said, like I'm so proud of like the four of us and as well as the other cohort members for being part of this group, because I think it's a very um, unique cohort, especially with how we've been able to get to this point and how we're funded through the NIA.
Yeah, I am you have a lot to be proud of, and I'm really impressed that National Institute on Aging is supporting this innovative entrepreneurship and this way of thinking. It's inspirational to all of us to think outside of the box and think about solutions like each of you have created. Let me, I've got a few follow-up questions for each of you, and then we can kind of dive into, I'm really curious with the perspective that you all have on what you see in the future. But Marie, let's kind of dive into your model a little bit deeper and tell me a little bit like how do you connect community with your platform?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I know it's a big question. So I'll break it down a little bit. And I also just want to say that it's incredible to see that all of us are doing this because of experiences in our own families. Like that's where it comes from for every one of us. In my case, it was my grandfather who was an immigrant and who had experienced a stroke and was no longer driving and was not super tech savvy and probably could have made use of Apple AI to a great degree. But in my case, it was seeing that he was socially isolated and he didn't really know what activities were out there for him. He didn't know which ones would be welcoming to him. He didn't really know, what he could take advantage of in the very, very local area that he lived in. And so the question for me started to be, okay, our communities really need to be doing a better job of reaching people who are in his situation, aging in place, whether that's with family around or not, and engaging people, telling them, hey, we want you here. Here's what you can do. Once you know that here's what you can do, here's how you can get there. There are solutions out there for all of that to make those links happen. And so, what WISE Connect does is that on the ground, we work with local businesses to actually host activities for older adults, which they would never have thought of before. But many of these places have times of the day where there's nothing going on. So, for example, the brewery, where people start showing up at 4 p.m., at 10 in the morning when they're open, it's a perfect time for them to host, board games and coffee for 20 older adults from the community to come on in and spend a few hours there, buy a coffee, learn some new games, meet new people, learn about some of the resources that exist nearby, both from word of mouth and occasional speakers and information that's shared, become more connected in that way. And then that is powered by an online platform that we've really put a lot of work into making easy, convenient, accessible for older adults to find out about those local activities happening nearby and associated services that they might find helpful for staying independent.
Wow. Well, I love that you use the example of a brewery because a lot of what we're dealing with older adults is the stigma of, growing older and the existing service model that's out there. And so I hear on a regular basis, it's sort of like, oh, I don't want to go to the senior center. But hanging out at a brewery in essence, turning the brewery into a senior center is a great solution. Now, One really cool thing about all of you is that I can really connect the dots and see how all these services interconnect. So I'm going to jump back to Stefano because Maria closed in talking about how they created this online platform where people can access all this. And, for some people, they might be intimidated by using anything online. So, Stefano, talk to us a little bit about your efforts and how you engage people that might be a little bit shy about technology to embrace it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's so funny. That is something that one of the things I've recognized as being part of this group of where we all kind of somewhat fit in in a little bit of like a big puzzle of like where we can help support each other. And I think that's what's so great about being part of this challenge. I definitely like Marie's work is amazing because it one enables those older adults to really be active and reach out to their only not only their community but also just amongst the social aspect of it. I think we kind of play into how do we help the older adult find that community online, right? I think we're at the beginning part of it, and I think for a lot of the startups and companies that we work with as well too, we always try to answer the question of like how do we help them be more digitally literate about accessing those resources. One of the ways that we do that now more than ever is actually helping folks with Appo, which is like that SMS text-based chatbot I talked about. From what I've learned from like years of working in this kind of space is that unfortunately the way that we traditionally help older adults learn about technology can sometimes not be so scalable. Sometimes it's not measured, and sadly it's not that accessible. And again, it's not a dig towards like traditional tech classes and workshops and tutors and things like that. But when we start to ask the question about how can we really reach more people, I think something that we've built, especially how easy it is without having to download an application, with having to necessarily ask someone to answer their questions, and that they can do it on their own time and be a little bit more independent when it comes to asking those tech questions. Is something that we are so excited about working on. And so, yeah, Apple AI is really just that texting person you can ask. I like to say this in like certain rooms, but I know this doesn't apply to everybody. But don't ask your grandkids, ask Apo, because if you have tech questions, we can definitely answer and help those out, and definitely find resources like what Marie's building. And I'm really excited because it also kind of plays into the caregiver side, which I love what Neal is working on because, not we don't often think about this, but when we sometimes ask other loved ones about technology issues, we in a way who's ever being asked tends to kind of play that kind of caregiver role, even if they're not in a certain chronic condition whatsoever. But, that older adult is relying on that person to have access to whether it be care, education, social connection. And so, I'm excited because I think Neal's work also plays into that kind of like supporting those caregivers, supporting people who really just need to have better access to care.
Man, no, and I agree. And the best thing that I like about all AI is AI does not roll their eyes. You can ask any AI tool, including Oppo AI, as many questions as far-reaching questions, and they're going to come up with an answer for you. So that's this great, Stefano. And because you're talking about Neal, let me jump to Neal. With both of these tools, with Wise Cities and with Caregivocity, I can see these tools as being exceptional tools for your CareYaya caregivers, the college age kids that are, assisting older adults. Tell us a little bit about like how your system works. How do you recruit the college students, and how do you match them up with the older adults?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. And yeah, I agree. I think one of the joys of building this workforce is like we do one thing well, which is connecting people with people who can care. And I think we're always like looking for, as the workforce scales, what other things can we plug into the ecosystem? Like all these technology solutions and even hardware solutions, like what Kareem's developing. I think all of these could be like part of the care ecosystem. So the way our solution works is, Steve, if I remember, you're somewhere in like the Virginia area. So we are very active in DC Metro and we're expanding into other parts of Virginia. But let's just say use DC as an example. If you are a son or daughter taking care of mom or dad who lives somewhere in the broader DC metro, you don't even have to live there. You could be living in Atlanta, you could be living in LA, and you're like, okay, mom or dad is, experiencing some form of cognitive decline, but they want to live at home and I need some help. You can go find local care agencies, and I will actually, discuss why the competitive landscape is not good. You can find, which I've been a user of, and they'll charge you somewhere between 40 to 45 bucks an hour to get care for mom or dad, and they'll turn around and pay the care worker less than half of that. So that's the care experience in America. I've lived through that, and it's a real affordability challenge. Most people can't afford that. If you just do the math on 30, 40 hours a week that you job, it adds up to almost $2,000 a week. I think cost of home care in the country is now pushing upwards of 80,000. There was a great article last week from Axios with the recent immigration restrictions. I think now cost of home care for older adults is growing at triple the rate of inflation. So, you think most middle-class families, even upper middle-class families, are completely being left behind here. And there's a growing workforce shortage. So our solution is basically, instead of paying 45 bucks an hour to get any person, to help you in DC, how would you like to pay 20 bucks an hour and get a Georgetown pre-medical student to come help you, or a nursing student, and that's really what we wanted to solve, is that the affordability and the quality is a problem because of the broken industry structure that is profit maximizing for local markets. So we were like, okay, if you can build a scale solution, that at some point is like running like Costco or Amazon of like razor thin margins, but flowing through a lot of volume, then it can be a better solution for all the constituents in the ecosystem. For the caregivers who are providing the care can get paid way more fairly. For the people who are receiving or purchasing the care can pay much more affordable rates. And then the quality of the entire experience is better. And I think that's really, what we've kind of like operationalized. It's really relieving burden on families. It's really putting students into great situations to care for people. Most of them are coming through us to us through pre-health career advisors, biology professors, like people who are advising them and helping them create a career pathway to future clinical careers. We do a pretty robust tech-enabled background checking, vetting, verification enrollment at university, interviewing, et cetera, for both the students and the families. So we run like a very high trust marketplace. Now we've kind of scaled the model pretty rapidly across the country with like a pretty relatively small team. And I think the benefit of that is that because we keep the costs very low, one of the elegant things about CareYaya, which I have to figure out a long-term strategy on, but for now have the grace of our backers, is we don't charge any fees. So the thing is completely free to use. All the money the families pay goes to the students. So it is literally like mathematically the most affordable care in America. And I would say, of course, I'm biased, but highest quality care in America, as evidenced by reviews and ratings. So I think that's like really awesome. That's kind of like the high level overview.
I love it. And also, especially if a family has used a traditional caregiver or is resistant having a traditional caregiver because they know their friends and they kind of see this saying, hey, mom, I've got a college student who she would love to come and be with you and help you, and it's going to help her in her future career. That's a whole different conversation that families can have that might encourage people to be more receptive, because let's face it, the stigma of whether it be home care, senior living, anything, the stigma can be really great and cause all of us to say, oh, I'm not ready for any of that stuff
No,
yet.
Steve, thanks for pointing that out. And I've been in that situation myself as a caregiver too. And, you'll hear, many times people using our platform will, the older mom will tell the middle-aged daughter, you're not getting me a babysitter. I raised you. I got you babies. This happens a lot, right? And it's a good reframe when you have a healthcare student coming in. It's, oh, mom, Sarah from Georgetown is here. She's gonna help you, but you're gonna mentor her, for a future clinical career. And I think it kind of flips, because I do think both sides need each other. I think that in today's younger generation, you can see the statistics in America that there's a barbell of mental health crisis and loneliness. And for older people, it's just because oftentimes people aren't around them. And sometimes a spouse may have passed away, the kids aren't visiting as much, et cetera. For younger people, I think it's maybe due to digital, technology, that there's like a loneliness expressed in a different way. But I do think that there's a challenge of loneliness and social disconnection, which I think by connecting to generations, the older generation feels like, okay, yes, I have dementia, I have, kind of maybe a last few years of life left, but I can pass on my wisdom, my knowledge by being around this younger person who's interested in my life story. And the younger generation, I think that there's sometimes a lack of feeling of purpose and meaning, and I think this creates that like I am needed here. Like this
Yep.
person who is 78 years old has been waiting all week to spend 6 hours with me. They're going to tell me all their life stories. Yes, they may repeat everything they told me last week, but it's making a big impact on their life. And I think that oftentimes for people, any of us, right, but certainly young people pursuing clinical careers, sometimes when you're hitting the books and studying for all these stressful exams, it's like, sure, that's great, but like the human element is
Hmm.
sometimes almost lost. So I think that this creates a lot of purpose and meaning, which I think benefits both sides.
I love it.
So yeah. Yeah,
Can I
so
just
I
add a
love it.
comment on
Yeah,
something
yeah,
Neil said?
sure.
Um, I had a chance last year to create and basically teach the first class at the University of Maryland called Intergenerational Connections, and it was a class of 80 freshman students. And as part of that class, we got older adults from the community to come in and chat with the students. They did brainstorming sessions, they had like one-on-one interviews. And what the older adults told me afterwards was, I think these kids are actually enjoying meeting us. I don't think they're faking it. I really thought they'd be faking it, but I think they're enjoying it for real. And so it was amazing for both sides. I really
Yeah.
agree with you. I think that it's absolutely true.
No, no, I love it. I love it. Yeah,
I was just gonna add in one more.
yeah,
Sorry
go ahead.
about that. I know one of the things that Neil's CareYaya team does is kind of help with that wound care incontinence kind of thing that they do with older adults, which is something that touches on what Kareem's done. But especially as like everything that Neil had mentioned about, like the caregiver and the really in the relationships between who's being giving that care. It's very so much true, especially in my current household. So I definitely understand that. But yeah, definitely like those services that Neil provided with his team, and addressing kind of like the care of the individual, whether it be the incontinence side of it or whether it be the actual medication or whatsoever, is definitely all needed to help with us. So
And Stefano, I'm glad you're bringing up incontinence because Kareem, and stigma, the stigma of aging, whether it be hearing aids, incontinence, you name it, this can really be quite a blow to somebody's self-esteem to think that, geez, remember all those birthday cards that we give as we're going older that we laugh at because we joke about people being incontinent. Well, now I'm incontinent. And di
Mhm.
dive into the origin of
Yeah,
how you created this and do your best to kind of describe it to our audience in terms of how it works. I'm very intrigued about your product.
absolutely. I think I want to take a word that Neil said in his answer, which was reframe. And I think it's important in addressing the stigma. I have family that have the problem. And when myself and my team would go talk to people in senior living, nursing homes, home care, hospice, hospitals, we kept hearing about urinary tract infections, pressure sores, sepsis, skin irritation. And the fact is, people's breaks are not getting changed quick enough. And people aren't admitting that there is an actual incontinence problem. There is, as we all know, a common thing we hear about is falls. People with incontinence have 60% more fall risk. 8 out of 10 falls happen in the bathroom from people rushing to try and make the toilet. And so we came in with the mindset of can we get people's care needs sooner, especially people who may be living with dementia, may struggle with vocalizing it's time to get their care. And so what we came to is sensing unit that's reusable, does not touch skin. It's adhered on the exterior of any reef, whatever brand is being used, Depends, Attends, McKesson, so on. And your caregiver will have a digital alert when there's a urine or stool accident. For people with fecal incontinence, it's the number two reason for nursing home enrollment. So when
Mm.
I think to the work Marie is doing of involving seniors in community, this is one of the things that's preventing people from getting outside and being part of society. And I think on the subject of reframing and stigma, this is one of the leading causes of isolation, depression, embarrassment, fear of asking for help, and it's not being addressed. It's stress on the caregiver, it's stress on CNAs, it's stress on the healthcare system, and fundamentally, it's stress on the person living with the issue.
Man, I love it. all of you are have really honed in on some super important and topics, and are being rather disruptive in the way that you're out there making things happen. And I love that as an entrepreneur myself. But let's use some of our remaining time together. I'm curious because you all are out there, you're going to these conferences, you're hanging out with the most innovative people in this space. What's on your mind? What are some of the things that are on your radar, or things that you're seeing out there that our community should know about?
I think that from a few books that I've read recently talking about the opportunity here to make change, like from different angles, and from seeing that directly, right, in all of our work, I think I'm pretty optimistic about what will happen next in all of that coming together and the different entities that will be able to play into that. And I've seen in our work, kind of partnering with cities, for example, seeing what the aging department is thinking about versus the economic development department versus the transportation department, and seeing that in recent years, there's much more being done to integrate all of that and to realize that, the transportation department needs to be thinking about older adults and how the person who has limited mobility is going to get into the type of transportation being provided, and how they're going to find out about it and how they're going to schedule it if they need, and all these questions. And then the economic development branch, needs to be thinking about how older adults are going to stay employed if they want to stay employed, and how they're going to stay economically stable, and how businesses can bring them in, which is, a little sliver of what we're addressing. And I think that it's good to see that these places over time are beginning to and will be more and more kind of overlapping in ways that are important, I think.
Yeah, you can see where a traditional municipality with the silos that it has is not paying attention to various verticals. I mean, it's sort of the big ones: kids, adults, older adults, but they're not interconnecting them as well as they probably could have, and they're missing a lot. You can see a municipality that makes the commitment with your platform is you're the one that's a reminder. You're reminding them that yes, you can always make older adults a priority, and let's connect the generations too. I love it. One thing that all of you that I've gathered from all of you, but especially Neal, because he really graphically illustrated the difference between his solution and traditional home care, is affordability. Because one thing that I see is that the entrepreneurs and the businesses aimed at serving older adults seem to be aimed specifically at that affluent group of older adults that we've all read about. But I actually think that the group of impoverished and caught between the cracks group is much larger than that. And I'm really impressed that I get the vibe that all of your solutions are designed to be very affordable.
Oh, I was gonna say on that, I think what you'll find with especially this cohort, Steve, is that we come from not only backgrounds with innovating backgrounds. I come from a marketing background, but we all come from some sort of evidence-based, research-based, and we're all for that. And I think that's what's so great about being a part of this group, where we can meet, scientists, researchers, product developers, community organizers, or even former hedge fund affiliated
Entrepreneurs, yeah.
individuals. But I think at the end of the day, like, we're coming together to create solutions, not only impact that 1% of older adults, but really underserved communities that typically, as you mentioned, don't really recognize. I think for me, what I'm excited about for what we are going to be doing, not formally for us, but what I'm excited for all these companies, is really about about how we talk about these topics. One of my recent inspirations, and not to go anything politics wise, is actually recently Zoran Mandani's campaign for New York, and how he really scaled the message about affordability, and really making sure that we're touching on what people are needing right now and meeting people where they're at. I'm really excited to be an entrepreneur in this space where we can use the current social media and the marketing platform and to kind of talk about these things. And normally, I think in the past, which you've seen over the years, Steve, on how normally people talk about aging and normally how they talk about older adults, and especially from incontinence to caregiving to community building, or even digital literacy, it's very, I would say, an established way of communication. And I think what's so exciting about this cohort and this group is that we can take like inspiration from what is currently happening right now, like that figure, and kind of apply that to these messaging. And as I said, like for us, our important thing is not only just affordability, but about scalability and measurability and accessibility, which is kind of the things that I think digital health literacy and digital literacy in general kind of still needs work. So I'm really excited about that, like kind of taking what is working right now, reaching people, and kind of really driving that message about topics that we're going to eventually face at some point, you know? And so I'm really excited about what's happening.
I think also Stefano's note about accessibility is kind of broad in the sense that it includes tech accessibility, but also I think all of us come from immigrant backgrounds, maybe people in the family who speak another language more comfortably. And so the questions of can we make this accessible to people from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds? Can we make sure this is as affordable as possible? Like those all fit into the accessibility question. And sorry, Kareem, go ahead. I just wanted to squeeze in that note.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly fine. And I think one thing that ties all of our ventures together is we're not letting people be left behind. And Neal CareYaya is expanding that caregiving access. Stefano's letting people get left behind in the tech innovations. Marie is not letting people get left behind in their physical communities. And for us on the incontinence side, I want to just portray a bit of the cost side to add on to what Neal was saying, since you mentioned affordability, Steve. Often, incontinence supplies are not covered by insurance. They're bought out of pocket. And on top of that, you have the cost of treatment if you get infected. The antibiotics for UTI can cost up to $7,000. And the problem is they become recurrent. And so what I see in the side of better hygiene is on the same vein of better access to physical community, better access to caregiving, better access to tech. There is cost in not addressing. There is cost in letting things ride as they are. And I think that each of us going into this space with the energy we have is important. For us, we're targeting Medicare and Medicaid coverage for our devices. Because when we talk to families and directors, that's what's prohibiting them from getting better care. And I think people are starting to see with the silver tsunami that's coming on, big, beautiful bill that was passed, that if we're not conscious and acting faster to address issues of loneliness, of health, and so on, we're going to be paying so much more for it.
For sure, man. No, that's great.
Yeah, Kareem, I think that was a great comment, and I'll echo that and add to that. I think Steve, kind of my view on affordability was like really, how like have you guys ever seen that movie Big Short? Where like the guy's like predicting like subprime crisis, and I feel like that's the way a lot of like investors operate. So I kind of in my early 30s I was running a fund, and I went through this multi-years of care for my grandfather through dementia, and then after he passed, for my wife, 3 years of cancer, and I think it actually clicked in my head of like, okay, this is going to be hitting the population really hard, right? Like we have a really rapidly aging population and there is a crisis coming. And, but I didn't want to kind of like do it as, oh, let's just bet. It's like, okay, let's actually get in there and try to, avoid the crisis because you can kind of see where it's going. And I think that, kind of our fundamental thing is the financing of care is completely broken in this country, right? That all these people are having out-of-pocket stuff. To your point about the innovation ecosystem, I totally agree. Like I've gone to all these aging and age tech conferences, and the vast majority of innovators, not including this group, but most of the ones I've seen, are kind of catering to the VC's interest of build a expensive thing for the affluent 1%, try to scale that, and there's some money in there. I think what both the VCs and the innovators are missing is that there is a mass market of need, and affordable, low price, scalable solutions will actually build both bigger enterprises and also make a positive social impact compared to kind of these niche high cost innovations. So I think that's kind of like a circular where you need more innovators to be out there. Thank God National Institute on Aging is like doing these moonshot funding programs to kind of bridge that gap, because I think the private market is failing at that. And over time, as the category develops, the private market will see the opportunity. and VCs will start funding that. But I think, you want to kind of bridge the gap. But yeah, I think there is an urgency, like for at least from our perspective, I'm sure even from you guys' perspective, like by 2030, the country is going to have more people above 65 than below 18. There are millions of middle-aged people dropping out of the workforce to care for mom or dad because the cost of care is so high. I think there are a variety of other challenges, which many of you have addressed. I think, Kareem, by the way, you're nailing the freaking numbers. Like, I learned 5 or 6 interesting things from your comments that I didn't know about. But I think, to your point, like, these are massive economical challenges, right, that are having second and third order effects on society. So, yeah, and I think that I personally think the payment system is completely screwed up. Medicare doesn't pay for most of this kind of home-based care. The health insurance companies, I mean, we all see what they're doing. So yeah, I think that this is it's a crisis, but it's avoidable if people kind of like put their minds to it and try to build cool solutions.
Man, I'm telling you, you talk about learning stuff. I love having you all on here, and I could talk to you for the next 3 hours. In fact, I need to go to the next conference that you're all at. That would be awesome. But but um, is there anything that any of you may have wanted to share but didn't get the opportunity to share today? And then I'm really charged up to get the rest of the National Institute on Aging Startup Challenge uh, team on here. This is the best day of my life here at listening to all of y'all.
I think one cool thing is that in Neal's work and some of what we're trying to do in ours is making use of the resources that are out there to meet the needs that are showing up. And so in the case of Neal, it's all these students who are out there and who are available and who want to get this experience and saying, okay, like click, we're going to match those two together. In our case, it's the businesses that are sitting there open and paying their staff to run the place, and no one's coming in. And we're saying, click, let's match that for the older adults who need social engagement. I think that thinking more about, okay, what else is sitting out there that we can make use of right now while the new, hardware and software and, platform innovations come out? What can we be doing right now? And I always like to joke, we always joke among the cohort that if we had money, we'd invest in each other, Like I love what all three of you are doing. And
Well, I don't think that time is far away. I really see success in all of these ventures, and you all are such pioneers and taking the brave step of being entrepreneurs, but then also combining that with making the world a better place. So I want to thank everybody. This has been a fascinating discussion, and I look forward to many more. So I'll hopefully see you all out there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Steve.
thanks
Thanks,
so
Steve.
much.